Hello and welcome to, let's put it this way, a different Ball of a Passion. We've got two people on BoP AVIs. We've got Chris on his own with his camera on. How are we doing, boys? Are we looking forward to this game? I'm personally a bit worried, but we'll get into it. How are you guys feeling?
I'm excited to watch it. I'm annoyed with kind of the lineups and stuff. I think when you're having a look at what the best thing you could do against this Manchester City is running power in central spaces. I think if you actually had to look at kind of the weakness of Manchester City in this season, it's the fact that teams that have run with them in the center of the park have done the best bet. So regardless of whether you want to address the Thomas Partey issue or not, one of the biggest things that we needed in this game was going to be central running power. And one of the things that we've lacked in our last couple games has been slow possession and kind of a reduced kind of tempo in the middle of the park. And so I feel, setting kind of the Partey injury aside for 1 second, it was something that I was looking to see in this lineup. And, when I was talking about gas pedal players in the past, I mentioned, Emile Smith Rowe would be very important. Gabby Jesus is kind of a regular one that we associate with that. But even Trossard, I felt, would be very important. And so when I'm having a look at the lineup here, I'm not happy with the changes. He's basically gone like for like in terms of positional changes with Ben White and Thomas Partey, but these guys are completely opposite profiles to each other, which I don't think you can go like for like for. And one of the biggest debates that I've been having on Twitter, I've obviously put out my personal solution. People keep thinking that I'm doing a prediction for what Mikel will do, and I don't understand that. That's boring. I don't want to predict what Mikel will do because Mikel will do what he's normally done because he's quite stubborn when he meets kind of a system that he's lacking a key cog for. And when he does that, he essentially responds by doing much of the same thing. And I don't like that. I really don't agree with the idea that Jorginho in the lone anchor role can do these same off the ball duties as a Thomas Partey. If you want to even kind of extend yourself, fine. They do similar things on the ball. I still would push back, but I can understand people's in possession queries being calmed. But a kind of middle three of Zinchenko, Jorginho, and then Tomiyasu on the right is something that I'm not looking forward to because Tomiyasu is going to essentially stay inverted, which is something that I wanted Ben White to do because he would offer that other horizontal agility and athleticism in the middle of the park to combat what Jorginho doesn't have in transition. And then I wanted Xhaka next to Jorginho to combat the second ball that you lost with Thomas Partey because it's not just central running power that you lose. It's not just second ball retention that you lose. It's not even just transition control that you lose. You lose a guy right now that's also the primary receiver. You need to fix all three jobs. And so for me, I think, look, Ben White has had a rough little bit of form in the last couple of games. So I guess you could understand some of the Tommy, but now this places an enormous amount of energy on Martin Odegaard to supplement Bukayo Saka and make sure that he's providing a dynamic overlap because Tomiyasu at inverted right back is going to hang back in the middle three. He's going to be somebody that's going to hopefully help Jorginho snap into place and really lean a little bit to the left, assuming that he takes more of the defensive responsibility. But he's not going to offer anything really in the final third. And so people that have been clamoring for Ben White changes because of final third issues are going to be very surprised when they find that, Tomiyasu is not going to make a run forward. So I think Zinchenko is going to have a very good game, and Gabriel mainly is going to have an excellent game because I'm worried about the left-hand side of, Zinchenko and Jorginho. I think that's far too loose off the ball. I don't think that we can go 1v1 in our press. And so it basically forces us to operate a different way and win a different way. So let's see whether or not we do it. I really hope that we manage to isolate them and kind of hope that Bukayo Saka and Martinelli can dig us out here because I'm not sure that I agree with going like for like when your fundamental replacements and profile are polar opposites of each other. Like that is the issue for me. And I've been getting in a lot of debates on group chats about it, but I mean, predicting somebody to go like for like just because Mikel has done it doesn't alleviate the problems that arise when your like for like replacement is the polar opposite to the replacement you're doing. That's that's the biggest problem that I have with this. So I'm going to support the boys, and I hope that we pull something out. But I'm not going to lie, I'm worried. I don't think that we perform very well, and I think that we will give City the impetus because we don't have enough central running power in the middle of the park, and we're going to bemoan a lack of fluidity because Tommy's not going to join the final third. I think we're going to find that Odegaard and Bukayo Saka are going to be isolated, and I do think that we're going to see transitions happen in the left hand side of the pitch. I think Mahrez is going to have a field day. Um, so that's kind of my initial thoughts. I'm frustrated, but kind of waiting to see the performance ultimately.
Chris, what are your thoughts before I give mine? You're muted.
Well, yeah, it's not the greatest to see Jorginho start. Obviously, the talk about Party was there the whole day. I do think the game is still winnable without Party, obviously, but the dynamics change a lot. There's a lot more 1v1 battles I'm scared of. There's obviously going to be a lot more space in transition. Maybe we'll be a bit more cultured on the ball, but it's going to be weird with Jorginho probably playing 90 minutes. Will he be able to be secure in transition, secure on the ball for 90 minutes? Hopefully, I don't think he probably will be. And then with Tomiyasu, obviously the overlap is different. I think he's there to help, kind of help Saliba and aerial duels. And maybe just because recently you see I've put Grealish 1v1 a lot the past couple games. And we trust Tomiyasu 1v1 a lot more than White. And White in every big 6 game this season has been making 2 or more fouls. So that's another thing. He's been very shaky recently, and in the big 6 games like United, what other game, Liverpool at home. So those games he wasn't necessarily good. So I see the Tommy argument, but offensively he may hurt us, and we're just asking for another Saka masterclass really, because Erdegaard I'm not sure will consistently overlap because he hasn't really done it ever for us. So hopefully he does that as well. And again, I don't like going into this game with a lot of hopefully, but with all the changes and it just has to be on hope, really. City's system is different to what we did face last time. They do have a four centre mids in rather than the 3 they'd usually have, and they will leave space out wide. So there will be times where Saka will be 1v1, and in the cup he didn't do too well, but I trust him to get the better of any centre back or fullback in 1 of 2 games. So hopefully he does that today, and then Martinelli 1v1 versus Kyle Walker will be interesting as well. But going into the game, I'm not as confident as I would be with Partey, but there's definitely a chance to take something from the game.
I mean, for me, look, there's a couple of things that we're quite clearly trying to do with this lineup. I think personally, and a lot of people are mentioning on the timeline, we're going 1v1, being a bit more aggressive in our pressing and trying to go man for man a bit. And the inclusion of Tomiyasu, what that does is it allows us to be give Saliba that bit of help in the aerial duels that he suffered in when we played at the weekend. So hopefully that will help. I also think it changes our build up a bit. I do think we go more 3-2, have Tommy be in that first line, push Zinchenko higher, and that will hopefully push Xhaka that bit higher, so we can get him underlapping on that left hand side, like we've tried to do in the first half of the season. I think pushing Xhaka a bit higher will give that added man in the final third, and hopefully some extra fluidity with his underlaps and draw and coming wide as well. So hopefully that will be a dynamic that we can use. I think the main issue today will be how, as I mentioned in the tweet, how we use our wide areas. Can we get the 2v1s in wide spaces, given that we're playing against a 3 at the back? Is Erdegaard going to be able to find space between the lines and get the ball to Bukayo in areas where you can succeed and really punish Nathan Ake? Because let's be honest, he had a okay game against City in the FA Cup, but Ake did very well as well. So it's going to be an interesting battle, that one. I do agree with the Martinelli Saka one, but I do hope that Xhaka will start making those underlaps and really give Walker, something to think about on that left hand side. And then Eddie, obviously, I think Eddie is going to be so crucial because his ability to link up play as well as push into the box as well and be that poacher that we need is going to be so interesting. So a lot of things that I think will need to obviously be thought about because of the lack of Partey being out. So it's going to be interesting to see how we deal if we do get into transitions. Are we going to have because I think personally we'll have Tommy also sit back and be in that and make that that false back three that allows us to be a bit more adept in transition to help Jorginho a bit and surround him with a bit more physicality, because if you surround him with just transition runner and one of the best transition defenders we have in the league, so it will be interesting to see.
I mean, part of my frustration when you look at this lineup is you're ultimately going to be outnumbered in the middle of the park. With them lining up with 4 central midfielders, you're going to have a case where you're going to face against their 3, and you don't have the necessary athletic prowess to meet them in the middle of the park either. That's going to be my biggest fear. And I don't know, like in terms of this comment, I feel like on this channel we've always critiqued this. I've always made it very clear that I feel that Mikel Arteta, when there's a major injury to one of his system, does not respond with the rotations that he should be doing. It's been 2 years in a row in terms of whether or not you want to talk about how Kieran Tierney could have been substituted. When Bukayo Saka became left back in his first year after Villarreal very late, that's been a consistent critique of mine for him. Like, I mean, I recognize that he's inexperienced, but at the same token, he's going to sit there and create systems that are going to get you to the top of the league. So you take the pros with the cons, but I don't think we've ever not said anything about this. But in terms of the differences between Tommy and White kind of starting, I think fundamentally the role of both is going to be one where they invert, regardless.
Yeah.
The difference is what both bring off the ball. And that is going to be my frustration, because I feel as though defensively, Tommy and Ben White are going to be similar. I think despite kind of, poor form, it gets overblown that, Ben White has been the second best, if not the best right back in the league for the course of this season. And 2 or 3 games of form don't suddenly throw that kind of pedigree out the window. So from a defensive point of view, maybe Tommy is marginally better in 1v1s. He is our best 1v1 defender solely. But, I mean, you're not gaining massive stuff there. Now, in terms of what you would be losing is the potential overlap and dynamism it might have, which might be needed to force Bukayo Saka inside, because you're putting a lot of pressure on Martin Odegaard to provide that overlap. And we've seen him struggle to do it. And in fact, one of the reasons that Martin Odegaard has been so successful this season has been the tweak of that role, in which he is the person that is in the middle third, dropping deep, being able to collect the ball off the center backs, maybe off the midfielders, and start attacks. That's been crucial to Odegaard's turn of form this season. So asking him to now do a role that we know he struggled with last season against one of the better teams in the league without that running power is something that I'm not sure I'm happy about, let's say. But that's going to be the difference between the two. I think what you're going to gain in basically having Tommy there is defensive 1v1 solidity, but you're going to have the right wing clog without its fluidity. It's going to put a lot of onus on Saka and Odegaard to create. Whereas with Ben White, maybe you sacrifice, a little bit of aerial duels, but you're gaining a lot more speed in transitions too. That's another thing. Tommy, sure, he's very good in 1v1 situations, but, Ben White is a lot better over larger distances. So I think it ends up evening out in terms of what you may lose defensively with him, but you just lose a lot of offensive potential with Tommy versus Ben White. So, and when you combine that with kind of Zinchenko and Jorginho on the opposite side, I'm not a fan of, Granit Xhaka being in this roaming, dynamic, floating runner role that he's going to be forced to do just by given the setup. So I hope that things are different. I hope that we can get an early goal and we can maybe keep the pressure on. But I have to be honest, I'm not confident given the lineup.
All right, let's get on to the main thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the ability with this to contain this Man City team, because I think with the wide areas that they are trying to use this Mahrez Grealish lineup to exploit. Do we think it's going to be a 3-4-1-2 or a 3-2-4-4-1 or a 3-1-5-1 type of deal? Are we gonna? Do you think he's going to push Grealish into areas to supplement Haaland, or is he going to try and exploit the wide areas and, as George mentioned, get Mahrez into positions where he can succeed?
I think he's going to isolate Grealish 1v1 out wide. And obviously, Bernardo will drop deeper and help Rodri try and dictate the game, because Bernardo does roam a lot anyways. So I think Gundogan will be higher. Gundogan and De Bruyne will be a bit higher than Bernardo and Rodri. So I think it'll probably be a 3-2. What is it? 3-2-4-1. Yeah, 3-2-4-1. And with Grealish out wide, really. That's what I think he'll go for, because that's what that's the shape he went for versus Villa. And something he's been trying to do recently a lot. And he hopes Grealish 1v1 will probably cause enough early fouls that side becomes a problem with yellows and stuff, or will just create too much space for the big switch to Mahrez and then have him 1v1 in the box. And, when you have that, it's a big problem. So, yeah, I think 3-2-4-1 he goes for today.
Well, and I think just really quickly, one of the big things after I've talked about all the negatives that I see making this lineup, I think one of the positives that I will say is that Tomiyasu has an excellent switch on him out to the wingers. And so if you're going to be basically looking at that formation, assuming that Grealish and Mahrez are going to be kind of more touchline, with kind of Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne occupying those inside spaces, you're going to be looking at Zinchenko and Tomiyasu to, when receiving, quickly switch the ball so that you can isolate the 1v1 space that's going to be against Walker and Ake. I mean, Ake did a really good job on Saka last time, and I think it's a very difficult matchup for him. I'll be honest. He's a good defender who's athletic and does know how to stick to tasks. So I think Bukhayo's a handful for anybody, but it's going to be a tough matchup. I'm more looking at the Martinelli versus Kyle Walker, which we've seen already get burnt. But I think it's something that we need to exploit a little bit more. So I'm hoping that either William Saliba or Tomiyasu take the onus on themselves to really create these fast switches from right to left, or Aaron Ramsdale from a goal kick really looks to release Martinelli quite early when City don't have enough time to get back in shape, because that for me is going to be our biggest plan of attack and our biggest likelihood of a goal.
All right, for the last thing I'm going to say before we get into predictions is we were talking about on the the Brentford review about, George was mentioning in particular about going over the top, not just relying on just going through the motions, going through the phases, but really going over the top and making sure that we can, change the tempo of the play and exploit wide areas. And the reason why I put in the tweet, how do we exploit wide areas better, is because I think it will be so crucial in this game. I think creating 2v1s in wide areas, getting the underlaps from Jack, which I already mentioned, as well as trying to get Odegaard in positions to release Saka, is going to be so crucial because there's a lot of space out wide. And I'm hoping that we'll have, as George mentioned, the right to left switches, but I also hope that we can get some of those Gabriel over the top switches like against Fulham, or even the Gabriel to Saka switch that we've seen him do in the past. So I really hope that's a major thing that we'll be seeing, because I think the City team has an ability to push you into their own half, but they just don't have that sort of ability to track back in transition as well as they have in the past. Walker will help them, but I think we have the weapons in Martinelli and Saka to really hurt them if we put them in areas that we can succeed. And the main thing I want to see, another thing, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on this before we go into predictions, is I want to see, if we bring Trossard on, I want to see Kieran Tierney. I want to see some width. I want to see some ability to really change the game from the bench, because I'm fed up of not being able to get those two on at the same time, because you're not utilizing the best out of Trossard by leaving him out wide. You need him in the box. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I've been screaming this for a while, and it comes down to really the crux of the podcast, where I don't like this idea of going like for like when your profile changes are polar opposites of each other. Gabriel Martinelli and Trossard have differences, and bringing on Trossard to be an outlet touchline winger is making no use of his qualities. You need to get him in the box and inside as close as possible and as much as possible in order to see as much devastation from him as you can see. You know, when he gets in the box, he will finish. So get him there. Don't leave him on the outside clipping and crosses. And it just comes down to that stubbornness. But we're kind of here already, so we're leaning into that effect. One thing I do want to mention that hasn't been mentioned is Jorginho. Look for his over the top clip balls wide really early when he receives off the center back. He loves to do that. And I think setting Bukayo Saka free and Martinelli himself, you're going to see floated balls over the top. And sure, Trossard is a pseudo 10. So, yes, you absolutely need to use him as such with an overlap. But yeah, generally, I do think that watch out for the Jorginho phase of play where he quickly turns and has a quick floated ball over the top in behind the defensive back line. I think that's going to be something that we're going to look to use and maybe kind of throw in the channel for Eddie to chase, hold up, and then keep the ball in their third. Like, I think that along with Aaron Ramsdale and long balls is going to be something that, you know, you're going to have to see to really pen the City team back. But I'm not confident. I'm just going to go into my prediction with it. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 City. I don't like the changes that I've seen in the lineup. So I'm not really confident that we get a result. I don't think it'll be a blowout because we're at home and there's going to be a lot of energy up for it. But I don't see us getting the win with these changes. I would have done something very different personally. So yeah, 2-1 for me.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm with George. Sadly, I don't really like going against Arsenal, but I just feel with the changes, the game will just be too long, and too many spaces will just open up to create a chance. And I think Mahrez has been very good recently, and there's the side that has gotten worse defensively is our left-hand side, and hopefully we go against everything. But yeah, 2-1 City is what I was thinking.
I am not going to be agreeing with you. I do think we can get a draw here, which is what I was going to go with. I was thinking 2-2. I do think there are goals in this game. There's a lot of goals in this game. I do think we concede. I think we concede to Haaland. I think Mahrez gets one as well. But I also do think there is opportunities. Yeah, I really don't want to say it either, but I don't think we're winning this game. I think 2-2 is optimistic personally, but I do think it's what we'll end up with. But let's see. We'll see. On that note, I think that we should sign off. Thank you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate it. We will do, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And
Can I do my thing?
No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for once. I can't be asked.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Like the video, comment, subscribe. We do appreciate everything. We'll be back when after this game, probably on Thursday or Friday, where we'll let you know when we do come back for the review of the game. It's going to be a fun watch. I think everyone is going to be enjoying this game. I think it's going to be one of those that you remember for a long, long time. So do enjoy the game, guys. If you're going, I do wish you well. If you're not going, give the boys the energy that they need because they're going to need it tonight. And that's it. The boys, you can find everyone in the description as well as on the screen. I am at Karan BoP. Chris is at CKFTBL. And George is at GeorgeV_AFC. And you can find us on Twitter at BoP Footy and on the YouTube at Ball of a Passion. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are Ball of a Passion, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye now.